Welcome back. Recent data shows women are leaving the workforce at some of the highest levels in history. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says an estimated 455,000 women left the workforce between January and August this year. These stats coming just second to the drop in numbers during the pandemic, with highly educated mothers and Black women specifically leading the exodus. The reasons behind the fall off are multifaceted, with the main factor, we're told, being rising costs of childcare and early education. Economists say if the numbers continue to drop, the losses could stand to erase historic gains and risk stifling U.S. economic growth.
No, that's not it. That's not going to all of a sudden cause 500,000 people, 500,000 women, 500,000 specifically Black women to all of a sudden be fired. What do you mean 455,000 women just left the workforce? Like, okay, you know what this reminds me of? Remember the movie Office Space, where he goes in for the interview, and they say, "We see here you've been missing a lot of work," and he says, "Well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it." These women didn't just leave the workforce; they were fired. They were fired because the positions that they were hired for, they didn't really exist. Rico, what do you mean by that? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but DEI is actually a symptom of another corporate um a corporate tool that was used to kind of change our society. It was something implemented by the World Economic Forum called your environmental social governance, the ESG score. So people don't realize this, but for example, even your bank gets loans from a bank. But these big banks that give loans to your banks, the world they get money from the World Economic Forum, and they get, well, not from the World Economic Forum, but they get money from the International Monetary Fund, institutions like that. World Economic Forum created the ESG score. These banks started requiring that smaller banks and businesses that want loans from those other banks have a brand new scoring system that has nothing to do with your credit, nothing to do with your income, but it deals with your environmental social governance. They want to know what's your carbon footprint, how many trees your business planted per year, but also how many bisexual, handicapped dwarfs of color did you hire. Basically, you were given a higher score for refusing to hire straight white men. So anything else that you would hire, you would get a higher social governance score. The reason they inputted DEI is so that they would be able to get a higher score and qualify for these loans. What they would do is they would create positions for women of color that didn't really exist, and that would help them qualify for the loan, because even if they're paying these salary to these women, it still makes up for it when you're getting the funding from these other banks. So yeah, you're taking a small loss to cover these salaries, but it's better than not receiving nothing or not qualifying based on your ESG. So to reach your ESG goal score, you had to implement DEI so that you can get in those people. What's happening is what they're calling what I would refer to as a realignment. Things are coming back into focus. Sanity is returning to the country. We're no longer living in the clouds. We're no longer doing identity politics or hiring based on wherever you put in your genitals that night. Like, who cares? We're a merit based society. The only time you do something that's not merit based and is based off of superficial things like your sexuality or your color is when you're trying to sabotage an institution. So these women didn't just leave the workforce, they were useless. they didn't serve a purpose. They were only there so that so these institutions could qualify for these other loans and have a higher ESG score. But now that that's been done away with, well, you don't have to keep these fake positions open for these people that were underqualified in the first place. Hiring underqualified people gave you a higher ESG score. Period. So these people didn't just leave. They were fired because they were useless. And honestly, let's be honest. You think it's bad when they come into restaurants or they sit in a movie theater? Imagine when you work with them and they're trying to find a way to sue the company so they can get paid for not working. So you have to walk on eggshells around them. You can't say good morning. What you mean morning? You know, that's what the slave masters used to say. We're mourning the kid and the slave. You know, it's like they have all this weird mental gymnastics. Everything they do is a reference to slavery, even coming to work. But I'm like, well, then why'd you apply for the job if this is slavery for you? People get tired of that. People get tired of every time there's an HR call, 8 out of 10 of them is going to be somebody claiming to have racial discrimination, oppression. People are, but you had to do it so you can get the funding. Now you don't have to do that to get funding anymore. It can be back being based on your, business credit and your finances. Well, get rid of these people. Let them go work for all Black places, live in all Black spaces, and then you don't have to worry about them calling you racist every goddamn day. It's too risky. So no, I don't know why these institutions, these news stations, want to be disingenuous and lie to you. It was all these positions didn't exist. Think about it. You don't lose 450,000. You don't lose 300,000 government employees, and then the government doesn't buckle. That means these positions weren't important in the first place. So why did we have them? Well, now you know. Even your country gets a loan from a bank that gets a loan from another bank. The Federal Reserve, the IMF, they loan and then they create these, and the World Economic Forum is now above them. That's why I said there's a conflict between the World Economic Forum and Israel over who's going to control the United States. So you see both sides making their move, but it seems like the World Economic Forum is going to pull ahead. However, if they displace Israel, if they displace the Zionists for control over our country, I don't know. Do we prefer the enemy that we know or the new evil enemy that we don't know? I guess we're going to just have to find out when the smoke clears. But no, these women didn't just walk away. These jobs were pointless, useless, and the only purpose they served was to just look good on paper so that these, so these companies would qualify for these loans. So now you guys know what happened. It's not a secret. I just hate that everybody's just so scared to tell you guys directly what's going on. So here I am to do all the telling for them. You're welcome. The single boyfriend, right-wing Rico Limbaugh. Rico Rush Limbaugh. I'll be back in about an hour. We're going to be on live again shortly, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. And thank you for tuning in. Oh, and like my page, share the video. If you have any comments or you agree or disagree, either way, I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you to all the new subscribers, and I will see you guys again shortly.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.